So I started out with Ben TV. Shout out to Ben Television. So they were the guys that put me on TV initially, and they were the ones that I'd always used to message. I have emails when I was like maybe like 9 or something, 9 or 10. I used to email them saying, "Will you guys ever have any kids shows?" Because I've wanted to be a presenter from time. So I thought it was really right. Like the world, life just comes at you like full circle. I've seen it a lot more recently. That's where I ended up doing my first like entertainment gig.
Amos, Madra.
Cindy Temi, broadcaster, radio presenter, podcaster, entertainer, business owner. You do everything.
Yeah, too many hands.
I've probably missed something out as well. A warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
So, Cindy, tell me about, yourself, your journey, your story into broadcasting. How did it all begin?
So I've always had, I think maybe we'll start from my name, Cindy. I was named after Cindy Lauper. And my mum used to say that when like I was like in her stomach around the time girls just want to have fun, I used to like kick to the song. So apparently that's why she named me after her. So I think that was probably like my initial, yeah, I'm going into entertainment from even before I was into the world. But then I've always kind of like been an only child, so you kind of sometimes have to create your own entertainment in times, and I found that through I would say not necessarily comedy, but just keeping myself occupied, like through entertainment, through whether it be dressing up or like pretending to be other people. So I used to do like little videos when I was younger that my mum used to have, and she'd send it to like any uncle or auntie that was kind of like in an industry space. And funny enough, like one of the uncles that she'd sent it to that worked for a particular channel, then that's where I ended up getting my first gig into like TV.
Wow. Okay. And you took on that opportunity. Obviously, first time you listen to yourself, you watch yourself, and I don't know about you, but the first time I heard myself on radio, I was cringing.
It's
And
cringe.
I was like, do I sound like that? Is that how I sound? And you notice certain things about yourself, but obviously with time you get used to it. So what was that like for you?
Oh, it was cringe because I find that you have to really be a really good critic of yourself, because in order to do better. So I felt that I had to kind of watch back videos and see how I was like presenting, the pace I was going, whether my conversations were interesting or not. And you have to actually watch back. And even sometimes at the beginning when we didn't have the luxury of an editor, I was doing, especially in the podcasting space, you'd have to go back and listen to what the edits had been done, and then like listen to that. I was just like, oh, sometimes you're like, oh, I hate the way I laugh, or I never get like, I never pause enough, I'm using too many ahs and stuff like that. So I was very, and I am still quite critical of myself, but it's all part of a learning process, to be honest.
It is, isn't it? It's something that we are all working on. It's a constant pruning. So tell me, you mentioned podcasting, radio. What's the one thing that you enjoy the most then?
So I genuinely I think the thrill of, I think radio is where I'm at right now. TV is fun because we used to do it live and we used to have different guests and stuff like that. But I guess it's kind of changed because it was TV. I think that would move into like a online kind of space now. But for radio, for me, it's still quite fun. You kind of do what you need to do. You get in and then you leave. I think the reason why I struggle with kind of like anything else that needs to be edited is that sometimes I just like getting things done. I don't like the whole editing afterwards or having to like listen back. I really thrive from a live environment, live audience and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nobody wants to be sitting around editing through the night and going through
But some
all
people
those.
enjoy it. It's their thing. Like I'm an on-screen person. People are behind the screen, so I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us about, some of the broadcasting that you've done. You've worked with, obviously, you're still on radio at the moment in London. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about your own show as well.
Yeah, so I started out with Ben TV. Shout out to Ben Television. So they were the guys that put me on TV initially, and they were the ones that I'd always used to message. I have emails when I was like maybe like 9 or something, 9 or 10. I used to email them saying, will you guys ever have any kids shows? Because I've wanted to be a presenter from time. So I thought it was really right, like the world, life just comes at you like full circle. I've seen it a lot more recently. That's where I ended up doing my first like entertainment gig.
Let's
And
pause there for a minute with that Ben TV, because I'm not just going to let you just move on like that, okay? Because Ben TV is the original. That was there from day one.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, when you got Sky Cable or whatever it is, and you know, you had your basic channels, and then after that you started having these extra channels, and then channels like Ben TV with pop-up channel U, MTV, all these different ones. Those were the days. And
As
yeah,
the
Ben
original.
TV was there from day one, so massive shout out to them. And yeah, definitely an original one. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, so I mean, and that's the thing, like everybody knows Ben TV. Like you can say Ben TV and never know, like no, even though like now it's like, oh, it's old school, whatever. It was the original. They put me on. We had amazing guests that would come through, and because that was more centered around like the Afro Caribbean scene, so like a lot of like Afrobeat artists and stuff like that I would have on, and that's where I got to interview like some really amazing guests. Like I had my Tiwa Savage interview there, my first Tiwa Savage interview. Some like great artists to think of, Kiss Daniel. So yeah, it's been a journey. It has been a journey.
And you're very active, especially in social media. Like every week, there's a live, podcast. You everywhere, all over the place. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so what I try to do is I actually do the live from off the back of the radio show. So when I am on air, I try to do a live just to kind of generate. You want to keep the engagement going. It's quite difficult because when you don't really want to be active and on socials, and the only reason why you're doing so is because you need to continue building up like an engagement for the show and the platform. It can be quite difficult, but that's why I tend to do it only when I'm kind of doing like the live radio show. So I'll just tune in from my page. Eventually that will move across to the actual shows page. But for now, it's just to kind of like generate like good conversation with audience and stuff.
And how have you found social media since obviously getting into this industry?
It's been a good tool and I think the best time was during lockdown for that, because what I felt was that's when kind of TV stopped for us, because we weren't able to go into the studio, we weren't having guests come in, flying in or whatnot, we weren't interviewing people. But because I still had that zest to kind of still do like interviews, interact with people, I said to myself, do you know what? I'm just gonna let me reach out to these people on social media. Some artists, like, they literally don't have to respond. They might not even see your message, but social media has really, really helped in terms of building some connections with like artists, connections, PR companies, media firms, really, really and truly. And having a page where people can see like your key highlights really, really helps as well, because otherwise you'll just go on a page and be like, what does this person do? What are they going to do for us? So
yeah, absolutely. Wise words indeed. So you've mentioned Tiwa Savage, some great artists that you've worked with. So tell us, who is that one person that you've worked with that was just, wow, blew your mind, and you had to pinch yourself thinking, how am I interviewing this person?
I think for me, that was last year, sorry, and that was Davido. More because there are a certain number of people that I've always wanted to interview. And obviously Davido has been somebody that I've been in his presence for a while, but never been in a formal setting where I could do an interview. Initially, I think Tiwa Savage was one of the ones that I was quite nervous about. Davido, looking back on it, I was deeper into the game at that point, but I was quite nervous about interviewing and speaking to him. Yeah. Oh, one that I did was a Nigerian artist called Fino as well. That was this is quite a big one for me as well. So look, I take everything in my stride though, to be fair, which I'm really good at doing. But I feel like sometimes that's when I'm actually physically in the interview setting. Unfortunately, there's a lot of drafting that happens around getting those interviews where you kind of have to be like waiting around. You have to be like, you just look, and in a way I really hate it, because it's almost like, oh, I just look, it's like I'm just there, I'm just waiting to be picked or waiting to be seen. But you have to do that in order to build these connections, unless you have the physical connections with the relevant people, which I do and I don't, to be honest. So I'm still not there yet. I need to build that in due course, I think.
Yeah, it takes work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does take work.
So talk to us about some of the struggles, some of the difficulties, that perhaps that you see in the industry, and maybe, you know, you think where improvements could be made?
When it comes to, and I'll say this from a musical perspective, I feel like there are sometimes whether it be the PR, the artists themselves or whatnot, they don't realize that there needs to be a balance between the marketing that comes with having certain guests on your show is quite beneficial, and sometimes they don't see it, because sometimes you do all of these things off the back of your own, like off your own back, like you get them in for an interview, you pay money to have an editor, you arrange certain things like that, and simple things like, you know, being able to go to a show of theirs or having certain accesses and privileges, I don't feel like they come as easy anymore. And I feel like in the industry it should have been like that. Like you should be, certain press houses or certain media houses should be on those lists when X, Y, and Z is coming into town without you having, it should just be a given. And I feel like sometimes that can be sort of a challenge, just trying to get things that you, or maybe you think you kind of should have anyway, but it's the way the industry works, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. And also, if you look at maybe, say, traditional broadcasters as well, do you feel like some of the gatekeepers have been removed, especially with social media now present, YouTube, podcasts, Instagram, and so on, all these social media sites?
I don't think so. No, I think there isn't. There's still an element of gatekeeping, 100%. And that's why I try to, in my space, I try to just kind of do what serves me and serves my purpose. I think a couple of years ago, I was very much trying to be everywhere, wanting to know why I wasn't on it, known about a certain thing. And I feel like after a while, when you've kind of done it for a while and you experience it, you just kind of get a little bit tired and you realize that certain things aren't really serving your purpose. So now what I try to do is, like, if I'm going to go to something, if there's a way that I could be the presenter or I could be the host, so that trying to tie it back into the main purpose of, in the day, it's a business. I do enjoy it, but I think I've gone past the years where I'm just doing it for the fun and the recognition. Now I'm trying to get paid to be that person. And I still at a point where I still take on gigs as a good opportunity or whatnot, because I value networking and stuff like that. Because I'm one of those people, you can put me into a space and I will try and network my hardest, but I just feel like it's now like every event that I try to go to has to serve a purpose. It's either I really like the artist or I'm down for it, or I know that potentially something could come out of it.
Yeah, you mentioned the key word there, purpose. What does purpose mean to you, and what is your particular purpose?
Like typically just being able to get something, like what are you there for? Like sometimes being in so many places at once, it kind of devalues you, it takes your energy. I think the whole purpose now is anywhere I go to still like fill me with a certain energy. Even that energy can come from like meeting somebody and then gaining an opportunity out of that. That can boost the energy that I had. If I didn't have a purpose initially, knowing that I went there and I was able to get something out of it is quite, it fulfills a purpose for me, because that purpose at that point was to network, it was to build a connection, it was to see where we could go next with that. So it's just knowing, it's basically building connection and actually gaining something out of it.
And what's the ultimate purpose for Cindy?
I want to be your Oprah Winfrey. I don't want to be tied to like a network or a channel. I want to be that person that if somebody comes into town, it's me that they need to have a conversation with. They need to come on my show. They need to meet me. We need to be able to reach like masses, because they love the conversation that I have with people. I dig on certain things. And one thing, I'm not a controversial interviewer, to be honest. I mean, I feel simply because any artist can just walk out on you mid conversation, and nobody wants that, to be honest. And I find it so interesting when certain people are, because I'm thinking, wow, the conversation that they would have had off air would have been something else. But I think that the ultimate goal is to be like the Oprah of the UK, because I just want to be that person. I want to be able to deliver really, really priceless interviews and conversations with people.
You're so inspirational, Cindy. You know, when I just listen to you speak there, you know, it's almost like goosebumps, and, you know, just your energy. Now, there'll be a lot of people watching, listening to this, who will definitely want to be doing what you're doing. What would your words of wisdom be for them to get into the industry, and also just to help them along the way?
I think definitely one thing I would say is, and these are certain things that maybe I still even struggle with, but generally be as confident as you can in the most public places where you can, because you're being seen and you don't know who's kind of watching, who who might recognize. I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was walking through the train and I saw, not that I recognize these people, but then today I was on Instagram and then I saw them on my page, and one of them's an artist. So I messaged her and I say, oh, were you on the train yesterday? Were you? And she was like, yeah, I thought I recognized. And it's just those things, you just never know where that connection, and now she's going to be a guest on the show at some point. But it's just like, I think when you're out in public, show up and show out where you can. If you are struggling with things behind closed doors, let it be behind closed doors with your close network around you that are able to support you. But when you are in that public space, just be the best version of you that you can. And if you find that you're struggling to do that, then that means you just need a break. You generally need a break, or something is not right, and therefore you need to take that time out. But definitely take time for yourself, and anything that you feel that is not giving or fulfilling your purpose, exit out. Even if you feel like you're missing out, trust me, people will eventually notice that you're not in certain places, and then you'll just be called on to certain things, and then that's how it should. That's how I feel it should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. And from when hearing that, it sounds to me it's Cindy Temi Ltd. You know, you're running it as a business. So basically,
we're walking businesses, to be honest.
Yeah,
we're walking businesses. Yeah.
So when you're out there, you're literally marketing yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So Cindy, what can we expect in the near future from you? What's on the horizon?
Well, on the horizon, so I'm going into the 3rd year of radio. We had some changes in the radio in our show, which means that now we have to go in harder than ever. We go in or we go home, to be honest. So I'm looking at making sure, and you have to bring on resources to kind of aid that, because not everything that you can do by yourself. Other people have different links and connections. So right now for the radio space, we're trying to be that channel, that show. My radio show is called Excuse Me Miss, and it's basically, we highlight like women in different industries or their respective fields that are doing amazing things, and just a general show about women and sisterhood and girlhood. And it's just basically having that conversation that you have with your friends, because you see different memes, you interact, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't the only person going through that. So like in that space particularly, it's like that program, that Excuse Me Miss show, is about to take over. It's taking off. It's been taking off as well, but we've been coasting. We're now ready to take it to another level. And then in terms of like delivering just interviews and whatnot, I'm at a position where now I'm going to continue doing interviews, especially in that Afro-Caribbean scene, from an online, a visual perspective, and then radio will be like an audio perspective as well. Yeah,
you certainly found your purpose and your positioning as well. So again, the audience will definitely want to connect with you. What are your handles and how can they connect?
Yep, so you can find, obviously through the TV and the radio, that comes about opportunities of hosting, MCing and stuff like that. So if you guys ever wanted to, you can find me across social media. Obviously my hands in many pies, but the main one for like entertainment is at Cindy Temi, and then my hair page at MzHair as well.
Yeah, a woman of multiple skills, not just the broadcasting. Of course, there's the hair and there's other things that you're doing. Wow, Cindy, you know, again, just talking to you, listening to, you know, the things that you've had to say, it's so inspirational. It's so inspiring that, you know, somebody finds their purpose, finds their calling. You know, you spoke so passionately about it, and it's having that passion, that energy and that drive. You know, you've had to maneuver, pivot, and just adjust things in terms of the radio, but still ultimately that focus is on that purpose of yours, and that's what drives you. It's that definitive factor, and I think that's what makes you unique. And if we can all take a little bit of that and apply it to what we do in our lives, we too can do some remarkable things. So Oprah Winfrey, watch out. Cindy, it's hot on your heels. Cindy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for having me on as well. It's nice to be on the other side.
If you want some amazing inspiration, check out the videos next to me, and I'll see you right there.